Senator Lambie.
Acting Deputy President, I rise to speak to the motion before the Senate regarding the Prime Minister's statement on national security deployment and the overseas deployment, again, of the members of the Australian Defence Force to fight the Sharia extremists in the Middle East. On behalf of the Tasmanian people, I acknowledge the bravery, commitment, decency, humanity and professionalism of the Australian forces deployed by this government to fight in Iraq and other Middle East countries. I also acknowledge the courage, the love, support those back home have for the troops, the defence families who wait and pray for the safe return of their fathers, sisters, brothers and mothers. They all represent everything good about the Australian people, and as much as they represent good, the Sharia foe stands for pure evil. Despite the horrific images and evidence of the evil of these Sharia extremists which flood our televisions and computer screens, there are still those in our community who are innocent to the Sharia supporters' intent, motives, capability and threat. They are still those in communities who don't realise that these thugs and extremists will not stop their acts of terrorism and depravity until their way of life, their culture and their law is imposed on Australia, indeed the whole world. There are still those in our community who think they can negotiate peace with these monsters and agree to some of their law and custom. Mr Acting Deputy President, it's about time we face the fact that these maniacs and depraved humans will not stop committing their cold-blooded butchery and rapes until every woman in Australia wears a burqa and is subservient to men. These depraved Sharia law supporters will not stop until all Australians worship the same way as they do. These thugs will not stop their killing until we bow down before their religious leaders, who will tell us how to live our lives and conduct our business. Australia is a secular society where we have a clear separation between church and state. There is no religion or religious leader in Australia or outside Australia that has the right to implement law. It is unconstitutional and it is for the protection of all Australians that this is the case. Indeed, if any law other than Australian law was recognised or following, either formally or informally, it would clearly show divided loyalties to our nation and its constitution. And yet we still have Australian citizens who continue to protest, advocate and push to allow a form of Sharia law or cultural practice in our country. It's now time to get rid of this Sharia rubbish in Australia. If we are going to send our forces overseas to battle against these fanatical Sharia supporters, then we also need to get rid of them and their associates on home soil. Clean up the rubbish in your own backyard before you try to clean up the rubbish in others, is the advice my grandmother gave and the advice we should now follow. We don't want our troops putting their lives on the line overseas only to come back home and find our government have sold out to the Australian Sharia supporters. I've been criticised by some because I couldn't properly define what Sharia law is. It's not going to come as a shock when I tell you that I'm not an Islamic scholar. However, I'll tell you what I do know about the supporters of Sharia. Every major terrorist attack on the Western world, citizens and Australian citizens, the 9/11s, the 9/11s, the Bali bombings, Boston, the Marathon bombings, recent beheadings and massacres have all been carried out by supporters of Sharia law. If people want more detail on this law, my advice is to go and Google Sharia. Be careful, you will see shocking images from overseas which I don't want repeated in our beautiful nation. Essentially, Sharia law is a law made up by men who hate women. It takes away women's rights, attacks equality and treats them like slaves and second-class citizens. Sharia law forces women to wear clothing which covers their face and body on threat of being beaten or killed. Any form of Sharia law in Australia, no matter how small or benign, will mean church and state are no longer separated. Overseas experience shows that under Sharia law, religious freedom would be destroyed while an extremist monoculture is established. It will also mean that the death penalty will be imposed on people who criticise or reject the state's official religion, and women who are found guilty of adultery. Torture and body mutilation, limb removal, will be state-sanctioned for those found guilty of stealing. Sharia law makes it okay for girls to be denied the same education rights as males and prohibits women from driving. Sharia law makes sport and music illegal. Sharia law makes it okay for the state to kill anyone who disagrees with religious leaders' beliefs and their teachings. It makes it okay for state to mutilate and torture people who are found guilty of minor crimes like stealing. Sharia law allows men to have 4 wives. Pornography is unlawful in Australia and should always be unlawful. Sharia law allows men to divorce their wife by saying, "I divorced you 3 times." Well, that's not bloody Australian. Sharia law forbids interest on money lending. Shall we change the banking industry? Sharia law allows for and fails to criminalise the barbaric custom of female genital mutilation. Each member of this parliament knows the truth in the words I've spoken. Why haven't those members of this parliament who have put themselves out as the champion of women's rights supported my call to rid Australia of this evil Sharia influence? Why have they turned a blind eye to the Sharia atrocities committed on our own home soil? It is clear there is one question every citizen and politician must answer. Do you support Sharia law or the people who follow it? If you do support Sharia law, then I'll say it and I'll continue to say it, then get out of Australia. If you oppose it, then welcome.